Have you been wanting to expand your business with more inbound referrals? If so, then this episode is for you. Today, I sit down with Lloyd O'Neill, who was able to leverage so many inbound referrals that he closed 42 transactions. Now, before we get started, if you find value in content like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button now. And as always, I'm your San Francisco connection and referral partner, Sean Conkler. Lloyd, man, thanks for joining me today. I am really excited to chat with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Sean. Excited to learn, listen, and answer a few of the questions along the way.
You have such an interesting trajectory. If people haven't picked it up, you have an accent. So you've relocated yourself from England to, I think it was New York, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and then moved to Atlanta, started your real estate business, and then relocated your business again, starting over from scratch in San Diego.
Yeah, so born in Portsmouth, England, right on the south coast, probably about an hour and a half away from London. So San Diego to LA is similar, Portsmouth to London, sort of distance-wise. I actually met my wife, my now wife, Katie, in New York, and she was from Atlanta. So I didn't live in New York, but I was there on vacation, met her. We kind of did the long distance thing for 6 or 7 months, and then we're like, what are we doing? So yeah, she's originally from Atlanta, so moved over there at the sort of middle of 2017.
So you were just on vacation in New York, living in England. She was on vacation from Atlanta?
Yeah, so she was in New York from Atlanta. I was in New York from England. We met the real old-fashioned way. We met in an Irish bar called Scallywags just outside Times Square. So, and the rest from there, Sean, is history. So yeah, no, we met back in November 2016 in New York, and then she came to England a few times. I went to Atlanta a few times, and then we had that conversation. What are we doing? And yeah, decided to make the move over to Atlanta in 2017.
That is wild. It sounds like you definitely have an adventurous streak. I talked to Ruth Refkin a couple episodes ago, and similarly, not as far and dramatic. Actually, she originally was from Israel and then relocated to New York, and then from California to New York and back and forth. But similarly, just saw opportunities and went for it. And I find people with that spirit it's so intriguing to me that people will make such grand moves.
It's interesting. I mean, growing up, I played soccer, moved away from home at 16 to play soccer in England. So sort of 2.5, 3 hours away from Portsmouth to Cambridge. So I kind of moved away early and then moved to America when I was younger, moved back, lived in Spain for a little bit in Ibiza. That's really how San Diego, we'll get to that, but appeals to me because it's kind of a mixture of Mediterranean vibe with coastal military city like Portsmouth, where I'm from in England. But yeah, no, decided to make the move over in 2017. I was previously in real estate in England for a couple of years, did some rentals, did some sales, but it's a very different industry. So I was never going to go ahead and get my license and do real estate in Atlanta. I was going to move forward and get into soccer coaching, which a lot of my friends that I'd met from England who are living in Atlanta did very well at. But yeah, somebody was like, Lloyd, if you do real estate right there, you can build a good life, and looked into it a little bit more, ended up getting my license, and then hung that with Keller Williams out of the Brookhaven office in Atlanta for a month. And then, yeah, ended up transitioning to one of the founding teams as Compass entered the Atlanta market, kind of, when would that be now? 2018 time. So became kind of a month with Keller Williams, but right out the gate with Compass as such from a professional standpoint. And yeah, love it.
So you basically started your business twice in a kind of a short time frame. I think there's going to be a great lesson here for somebody listening if they're starting either in a new market because they've moved, or if they're just starting in real estate in general. Based on those two experiences, what are some of the core things that you learned to do right away to get your business up and running?
When you make a transition into a new industry, especially real estate specifically, everyone's a real estate agent, as you hear constantly. Oh, my friend's got his license, I'm just getting my license. Like, the entry level to real estate in the US is not difficult. And moving over from England, I appreciate that. But that being said, there are a lot of agents. Everybody knows, there's a couple of friends here and there. So I feel like from day one, what I did was I trained my local sphere, my friends that should be a referral source, that I was professional. See, like social media in that aspect, Instagram, I'm not saying that somebody from Texas or somewhere random is going to land on my Instagram and say, hey, I really want Lloyd to sell my home. But what I do know and what was successful is it's your walking daily business card to kind of show off and show what you do to your friends and family who are choosing to be there. So I feel like that was becoming a real estate professional and not Lloyd from soccer or Lloyd from the pub or whatever that may look like is very key. So you really need to train your audience what you're doing and show that in a professional way, from open houses to going on showings to being at the office and things like that. And then I feel the other massive part, which really kickstarted my business, it's been over, I think I counted them up when I knew I was coming on here because we discussed it. I think 42 closed Compass referrals in the last 4 years, of which it's probably created, say, 200 opportunities. Some people are not ready. Some people are 6 months out. But yeah, I think agent referrals is another massive part. And I feel at Compass here, we're very fortunate because it's pushed on us, it's taught. We have our amazing retreats where we actually met, where you get to meet people face to face and build out those relationships with like-minded people who will think of you when they think of San Diego or think of you when they think of San Francisco, Sean, So I think training your local sphere that you're a real estate professional and building out an agent referral network nationally within key markets that move in and out of Atlanta originally, now San Diego. Those two things are really the main two drivers without trying to overwhelm anyone.
So I really want to put a spotlight on this, and I sincerely hope somebody listening didn't just glaze over that because you said it so casually. But 42 closed transactions from referrals is amazing. That is a huge amount of business. And then obviously those are closed. And you mentioned a huge stack behind that are future opportunities. That is unbelievable and so powerful and important for the core of our business.
A lot of people grow up where they live, right? And they know everyone. They went to high school with people. They went to college with people. So when they get their license, they think, oh, this will be easy. I think the one benefit I had was I didn't know anybody. I lived in Atlanta about 18 months before maybe just over a year before I started getting into real estate. So I knew some people, but again, I was more figuring out what I was going to do and how I was going to structure my business. But yeah, I feel, the famous Compass workplace, that's where it all began. That was my eye opener. I think I was sat in the Bucket office in Atlanta on day 2 and something popped up and it said, hey, I need an agent in Atlanta to help a buyer of mine. Called the agent, built the relationship, got the introduction, presented well, found a house, closed. And then that agent sent me another one directly. And that was my second eye opener. So it was more like, one, this is real. Like these happen. People are looking to move in and out of your locations and agents will happen. 2, you get very warm leads rather than cold calling, or, you get a very, very warm introduction most of the time. And then because I did a good job, I became his go-to. So next time he wasn't shopping for an agent in that market, he had me, which was great. And that was kind of the second layer of, here's the carrot that's been dangled. Now you do a good job. Now you get that. And then you start becoming the go-to for their team or their office once, it builds out from there. So yeah, that's been a big part. And then another thing with that, real estate, you never quite know. Like if you meet someone at an open house and they say they've got a house to sell, they might own 6 houses in the area. And that's kind of what happened to one of my referrals. I thought I was calling on a cheaper listing and it ended up being 5 deals in the end because they had 5 houses they were looking to move in that area. So we went one after the other. So yeah, just being brave, making those connections can lead to a lot more as well. So that's been a huge part of my business. Again, there's been lots of people, lots of referrals I've come across where they haven't worked out, or they decided they didn't want to move to San Diego anymore, or they're going to stay put for 2 years. And that's another part of the business, is that client retention, where you want to stay top of mind, but you don't want to pester them about buying a house or are you ready yet? You just want to organically stay top of mind until they are ready. And I think nurturing those clients also proves to the referral agent that you care about your job as well.
Yeah, you make a really great point. Is not everybody is ready right now, and you just have to nurture. You have to stay present and available and helpful. And when they're ready, it tees it up. And then once they close, if it's from an agent, we all talk to each other, especially in our offices. So if somebody in my office was like, hey, does anybody know anybody in Atlanta? And you and I had an amazing experience. Of course, I'm going to be like, I got your guy. Call this person. They're going to lock it up for you. They'll do a great job. They did for me. And it's that it becomes part of the reputation. But to get that initial, you just have to put yourself out there.
Further than that, yes, you get the social. So if I'm visiting San Francisco, if I'm visiting New York, you have agents that you go and meet for a coffee or you go and watch a game with and things like that, or play golf. But also it's so important from a knowledge perspective, because the amount of people transitioning states where the contracts are different state by state, the timelines are different, the protections are different. See, like I had a lot of wealthier New York buyers when I lived in Georgia, and here I have a lot of wealthier people moving from the Bay Area who think San Diego's cheap compared to the Bay Area, which is a different dynamic in itself. But, you know, understanding how a contract in New York may take 60 to 90 days against the now all cash buyer once they've sold looking to close in 10 days. And how do you figure out the timelines, the closings, the communication? I feel that's the knowledge perspective, and, you know, understanding reverse and standard 1031s when working with out-of-state investors and things. I think that's what gets you the repeat client, is having the knowledge. So yes, it is who you know and how you get to know people that gets you the opportunity, but then following through. And I've really found, you know, knowing agents in certain locations is great when trying to figure out timelines around contracts. And if we're going to list on this date in New York, when do we have to list here, or when do we start our search here in San Diego to tie them together? So the knowledge, the social, and the referrals are kind of the three things that agent relationships give you.
Same page. And, you know, right before we were recording, we were talking about having somebody who's on top of it and super communicative is, for me, that's important, especially if you and I are doing a deal and there's a 1031 involved and we have a very specific time frame. Like, you and I have to be on the same page with the client to make sure all of these things get executed correctly so the client ultimately gets what they want and need.
Yeah, and I feel with that as well, having the confidence and the honesty to say, I'm not sure, let me find out, you know, because when you're representing a referral and somebody who's put their trust in you, every real estate transaction is different and you learn something new. And I know that, you know, as you grow in the business, you become more aware of things, you have better vendors and things like that. But I feel part of taking the trust on of somebody's referral is also having the honesty to say, if I'm not sure about something, I'm not going to risk your $100,000 earnest money or your $3 million purchase. We're going to take a second, find out, speak to escrow, speak to title, and then we're going to come back with a solution. And that builds the trust as well, because not everybody knows everything.
And it's more, I would say, precarious in California opposed to some other states, because we don't use attorneys to write up the contracts or any of the paperwork. We have them through our association. And so because of that, we're in one of the most litigious states, but you really have to ask questions because we're not attorneys. So sometimes you have to consult with an attorney and just be like, hey, if this happens, what are the options, or what are the potential outcomes that we need to look out for? So it gets complex very quick.
It does. And I feel, like I say, you ultimately, you want to do the right by the client. You want to do right by everybody involved with that. And that's only by finding out the right answer and not moving forward on a guess. So no, I agree. The knowledge is key.
Yeah. And it all just comes back to just communicating, and then letting, if it's a referral that's coming in, just let them know, hey, this situation arose. We're working through it. I'll keep you posted. Much better than them finding out that the deal blew up and they have no idea it was going to and why it did, because they'll be super irritated at that.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll take a you'll get an introduction. This is not just from a referral perspective, but you do a buyer consult or a listing presentation, and you think it went well. And sometimes the relationship breaks down. Sometimes they've decided that they don't want to look here anymore, or they've decided to go this route, and that's fine as well. I feel like if you're honest and you're true to yourself, that's all you can do. You're not going to click with everybody. You're not necessarily going to be the right person for somebody. Again, I'm always very confident in how I perform and what I provide. But again, I think leaving that on good terms, letting the agent know, letting the seller, letting the buyer know, because sometimes it's not a bad thing to be the second person as well. Like if you come in as the second agent and they've kind of figured out that maybe you were the choice at the start, that can also have its pros. So yeah, I feel like even if it's bad news, just leave it on good terms, try and understand why, and then try and learn from it.
At the end of the day, this is a very competitive business, and most people, especially high net worth, they're likely going to be talking to more than one professional. And so if they don't choose you, that's fine. It's move along and everybody's fine. Just you kind of just got to lick your wounds and go with it. But if they're talking to 3 people, 2 people are not going to get to work with that person.
And that's okay sometimes.
It's a numbers game.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something that you said about your Instagram. And I think it was interesting the way that you positioned it. And I never thought of it like this before. But essentially you went from on Instagram being a soccer coach and player to, or football, as you say.
Yeah, you can say football to me. I know what you're talking about.
I appreciate you dumbing it down for me, actually, and not saying football, because then there would have been confusion right out of the gate. So I appreciate that.
Even my wife and I, Katie, like we still find a new word or two a week that's different. And I've just given up and I say trash rather than bin now and things like that. I've kind of tried to keep the accent, but made sure that I at least can run with the conversation.
Hey man, use your own lingo. I'll pick it. We'll work through it together.
To your question, yeah, like making that transition from moving to Atlanta, meeting my new sphere through the Sunday soccer team that we used to play in, funnily enough, called Visa United. We had about 18 to 20 English lads that all lived in and around the Atlanta area that kind of knew each other, and we had our own Sunday league team. So that was great for networking straight away. So that's how I was introduced to them. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to go and get my real estate license. And that was cool. So then it was like making that transition from how do you build their trust and how do they think you're genuine? Because again, all of those people, a lot of them were primed to be in that sort of category in Atlanta to start buying, to sort of be a first-time home buyer. So yeah, I think the Instagram side of it was a way to show your daily activities without being desperate, without being forceful, and just build it. So then I'd be doing these open houses on these brand new townhomes, and I'd be filming the kitchen, and they'd be like, oh my God, I love that kitchen. And I would just try and cover as many areas as I could to then show that I was present in those areas. And then I'd get people reach out and say, oh, I'm looking to buy in Sandy Springs soon, or now I'm looking to buy in Del Mar or Encinitas. And that's perfect. You're just building that trust and that reliability that you are present in that area. And that works with agents as well. So a lot of the stuff I do on Instagram is more just casual, genuine. I might go and take the dog down the beach for a walk. I might play golf at Torrey Pines. Whenever I post a golf picture from Torrey Pines on my story, I get 4 or 5 jealous agents from freezing cold areas of the country making those connections. So again, I just feel like they're conversation starters, and it's just a way for you to stay top of mind with your friends that should use you really, but they also know 5 other people. So you've got to show that you're good, and you do that in a genuine way, really.
It's interesting that you went from soccer to real estate. And, if you just kind of step back for a second and you look at your Instagram feed as a business, essentially you just rebranded and you changed the brand from playing soccer all the time to look what I'm now doing in my new career. This is the new path, the new business. And to your point, if you do that consistently enough for a long enough duration, then it just becomes, this is Lloyd and he practices real estate. And it's it's very clear in people's minds. And I always find, and I even found it with myself when I first got into real estate, there was a weird transition period of people who knew me from my past life and still assumed that I was still doing these other things. I was still teaching martial arts and I was still that other person, whereas in fact, I spent days, weeks, and months working on this new craft, this new profession. And so it's basically a rebranding drill.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a way to present it without being salesy. Because people will come to you if you build the trust and they like you and you're personable. Again, you're not going to attract everybody. Not everybody's for each person, but I feel they get attracted to you, and they see that you're busy and you're in the market. And it is key. And then, you might post a picture of an off-market property that you've just been to, saying, like, that's where you try and provide that extra value and the little hooks in their brain where they're like, he has access to properties that no other agent has. Maybe he is worth a conversation, or I can sell your property off market without burning days on the MLS at a price that you'd probably get on the market. So just trying to use the tools, especially what we have at Compass here, to your advantage and build the trust. And Instagram, like I say, is a good way for me just to stay top of mind with people that are choosing to be there. You're not emailing them or texting them or calling them. They're clicking on you to look at your story or comment on your post, and that's been a good way to do it as well.
It's funny, on that same spirit, I have a property that we're working on currently, and it's probably going to come to market. The timeline's off because of when this records and gets edited and pushed out is different than the actual timeline. But the property's coming to market next month. So what we're doing at the end of this month is we're hosting a panel of 3 agents who have just kick-ass social media platforms. And it's going to be a platform for them to teach a room full of agents about how to improve their social media. It's going to be hosted at my listing that's not yet on the market. So the takeaway for people is they're going to have then an opportunity to kind of not only network with all the agents in the room, but take videos of this property. And so essentially we're creating a little mini army of marketers who are saying, hey, I'm like at this really super cool event and we're learning this thing. And oh, by the way, it's an off-market property. And it essentially, it helps them, it helps us, it helps my client. And ultimately it's for my client, it's more marketing exposure.
No, absolutely. That's just given me a little thing on an appointment I was on where it's also a way to test the price, right, as well. So if you're going to have Compass agents coming around, it's like, why don't you all tell me, with a seller that's not sure on where it should be listed, they think 3 million, you're not sure, or, you can see it, there's like $1 million spread. It's like, why don't we ask 4 or 5 of the top agents in the area, let's put your price in a hat, and then we've got our spread at the end of the night, for example, or using your party as an example. But if it's just a standard thing, let's have 4 or 5 of the top brokers around. Let's see what they think. And not only may they have a buyer for it, at least you're going to have your spread and a little bit more knowledge.
100%. And it's funny. That is also something I'm challenged with pricing this property because it is very unique for that neighborhood. And I've 100% been struggling on price. And so part of the pre-market is I have all these amazing agents in the house. I would love to hear your number. And then to your point, get their opinions. And then I think the more important part to that is share who's giving it and share that with the client and say, it's not me generating this information. These are all a handful of professional agents in this realm. Here are their suggestions. And then in sales, it matters who says it. And so it's a lot easier for a seller to then wrap their head around where it should be if they're getting all of this collective feedback. So yeah, it's funny. Since we met, I followed your Instagram, and I do love that your cover photo is always black and white. And so it's a clear signature that when I see it immediately, I know it's yours immediately right out of the gate, but it's really well crafted. And part of what you do, which I really, really love that you do, is you have the philanthropic side where you feature the beach cleanup. So talk to us a little bit about how that came to fruition.
In Atlanta, I felt like I had a local sphere that I was building, and then I had my referral network that I was building. When I decided to move cross country, my wife's dad lives here in Carlsbad, so I'm just up the road in Del Mar. But yeah, he lives in Carlsbad, North County. So we would come and visit the beaches, the weather. It messed with my head, I'm not going to lie. And when we decided and did the thought about moving, the agent networking really gave me a kickstart. The agents that I'd helped previously, I kind of gave a little 6-month warning to that, hey, I'm going to be moving to San Diego in 6 months. Stayed in touch. If you've got any clients, from the August, September time that would need assistance, I'd love to help as well as I did here, and so on and so forth. So when I moved here, I kind of was working on a couple of deals, and I wasn't selling houses there at 3 or 4 or 500 grand a lot. This was like 900 grand, 1.2, 1.6, 2.3. And slowly but surely that carried me through the first couple of months. And then when those interest rates went from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8, kind of what we were talking about earlier, like every agent, you had sellers that don't want to sell anymore because they're not sure. You've got buyers that don't want to buy anymore because they're not sure. And that's where the light bulb moment in my head went off, that I now live in San Diego and we're not on vacation anymore. And that although agent referrals are great and that's given me deals to work on now, I needed to start meeting people here. So this is where I was kind of learning from reality from my first 3 years in Atlanta. I was like, what did I wish I had done there that when I started that I would do now? And I was like, I need to do a community event. Because I was thinking to myself, how can I go door to door in Del Mar or Encinitas, La Jolla, like whichever area I chose, and Del Mar is where we spend a lot of our time. I was like, I need to invite people somewhere nice, somewhere cool, like somewhere that's not forceful. I'm not knocking on your door asking if you want to buy or sell, because no doubt one of your family members is an agent. But I was like, I can go door to door and invite people to my beach cleanup, and that way I'm giving myself access to their front door in a nice way. A lot of these houses up the hills in Del Mar, you can't even see the house from the road and you have no idea what the view looks like of the ocean. So it gave me a real good way to go door to door, make some notes of houses that are potential flips, potential teardowns, primed for a new construction lot. And then obviously that is a driving conversation at all of my open houses now as well. I never really start with, where are you looking to buy? What's your budget? Like your traditional open house talk. It's almost like, oh, coming in, where do you live? Oh, we live up the road. I'm like, oh, you'll have to come to my next beach cleanup, or wherever you want to drop it in. I find like that is a good way to build that trust, because you're not thinking about yourself at that point. You're doing something for the neighborhood who go and enjoy that. So yeah, the beach cleanup was something that I thought about, put it off, and then thought last May, let's just do it. So we did it. And now this Saturday, tomorrow morning, actually, the 27th, when this goes out, is my 9th one in a row, I believe. So we went from May all the way through, and then we're going to do this one. So it's just been a good way to invite neighbors to the beach that they use it as a real good conversation starter at open houses and appointments. And it's an excuse to text and email your contact list. Now, I don't necessarily do it every month, but I have, variations of how I outreach. So I feel from an agent, it's always key. How can I stay in contact with my clients? You don't want to talk about the value of the house. You don't want to talk about interest rates. Let's invite them to a beach cleanup where they can meet other people. Or I did the Del Mar racetrack sponsorship with Compass. Let's invite them to the Del Mar racetrack. Or sometimes I'll get a golf tea time, knowing full well that a lot of people have jobs. So, you use that as an outreach to invite people places, make conversations, stay top of mind. And that was really the focus.
I love that approach. You remind me of the Knox brothers in Florida. They really wanted to dominate a specific neighborhood that was right next to a golf course. So they would just book tee times to get on the golf course and talk about golf. And they would even joke with people of, yeah, let's not talk about real estate. I do that all day. Let's just golf and have fun. And inevitably they would ask about properties and values, and it would loop back to it. But the spotlight wasn't on the business itself, which I really appreciate your approach. And the byproduct is amazing. Like, most people want to help out. Everybody loves a clean beach. No one wants to go and see filth and garbage all over the place. And so you're actually doing something really amazing for your community, and it's being associated with you.
Yeah, it's been good. We did I've done the last Saturday of every month is how it's kind of panned out, other than we did the 23rd in December for Christmas. Yeah, we just turn up 9 till 10, put my table out, coffee and donuts. Sometimes less than 10 people turn up. Sometimes we get up to 30. You know, that's the thing I think you got to get out of your head when trying to start something, is the anxiety. What if no one turns up? Like, well, I see that. Well, no worries. My wife and I are down there. A few people turn up. Even if 4 or 5 people turn up one time, you have fun. You're giving back to the community. And when you're down there doing it, it feels good and you feel accomplished. But again, it's like an open house. This is a good tip for a new agent. I used to judge my open houses by who walked in on the day, right? Now, although, yeah, you want as many people to come in on the day, I feel like they're very valuable and they're worth it, even if nobody walked in, because I've locked it in on the Monday. So I've got to social media that I'm going to be there all week. So say top of mind with my people. I get to email blast or text blast it to people that I've met previously in my local sphere. So I feel like I get, 500 to 1,000 outreaches from doing an open house. And then I love meeting all the neighbors, because that's how you find out who's going to sell next, or that's how you find out, because they know a lot more than about you. And I make no secret of that. Like, I appreciate the neighbors. So I think a good tip is to make your event or your open house successful before you do it, so you feel like you're accomplished. So I know that I've spoken to 500 people, so even if no one turns up, at least I've been memorable for that with those people, and that's been good for me.
In hearing you share that, something that always drove me absolute bonkers is when agents say, oh, I had 3 buyers come through and a whole bunch of looky-loos. I hate when somebody says looky-loo. First of all, it sounds ridiculous, but that always annoyed the hell out of me, because those looky-loos are neighbors, and neighbors have way more information about that specific neighborhood than you ever will. And so they're not looky-loos. They're amazing opportunities. And one of my openers with that group of people is, how long have you been living in the neighborhood? 30 years. Oh my gosh, that's a long time. But what do you love most about this neighborhood? And they'll just unload. They'll tell you everything that you'll ever need to, if it's a newer neighborhood for you or you don't know all the nuances. And then you start building the rapport.
100%. And another thing, it's like you try and figure out how you want to get their details when they walk in. How are you going to do that? So people are like, oh, you need a sign-in form. You need to do this. You need to do that.
Never.
You can tell when they're a neighbor because they wander in. And I'm like, oh, don't worry about us. Like you just said, we're a looky-loo, or we're just coming to see the remodel, or just coming to see the house. I'm like, oh, perfect. Which road are you on? My first question, not even their name, which road are you on? And then they say, oh, we're on Portofino, or we're on Delmar Heights Road. And I'm like, oh, what number? So before they've had time to think, I have their address in my head, and then I type it in my phone notes, and then they get a handwritten note the next day. So it's taking it that one step further, where if I can get their address and they'll give it to me, then you start talking about the beach cleanup. And then 5 minutes later, you've got their email address, their cell number. And that's what the long-term goal for me is. And it's slowly but surely here in San Diego now, just starting to, learn from my mistakes, learn how to do it, learn what to say, what not to say, but ultimately just be organic and get their details.
I have a very similar approach. I kind of zig and zag a little bit with the conversation. I don't hit them with sign in. I actually, when I was very early in my career, I was at a different brokerage, and it was like trained. It was beaten into us that you have to have a check-in sign-in sheet and you have to capture everybody's information. And I was so proud of myself one weekend. I had like 25 people come through, and I captured every single name, phone number, and email. And on Monday, I reached out to everybody, and I got no response. And then I followed up with everybody, and I got no response. And then I followed up again and no response. And not a single person from that entire list ever responded. And I realized at that moment, that was the wrong approach. And so I flipped the script and I would start doing more of your strategy of, hi, come on in, welcome. And then I would set up the conversation a little bit and let them explore. And then you can, to your point, you can read the room. You can figure out if they're an agent when they walk in. You can figure out if they're a buyer, and you can usually sniff out if they're a neighbor just wanting to see the reno or whatever it is. And then you elegantly go from there. One of the things that I always like to do is create curiosity of, oh, have you seen this XYZ property that's not yet on the market? And chances are they haven't. And you're like, oh, let me send that to you.
That's it as well. And funnily enough, we were talking about Jeremy earlier. So like a tip that he taught me a few years ago was have all of the other open houses. Compass is great. Like, we're very fortunate to have the technology we do. But so what I'll do now, if I'm holding an open house in Solana Beach, I'll take Del Mar one side, Encinitas another, maybe come into Rancho Santa Fe area and kind of have the 3 or 4 surrounding areas that a buyer will walk in and have value on you. So not only do you know the off markets, you can talk about the Compass pocket listings that we have. You also now have a link to all of the open houses in the surrounding area that now they're going to give you their real cell phone number because you're going to text it. And so on and so forth. So I picked up a really cool buyer last year from an open house I did in Carlsbad, where she came in, it wasn't really the fit for her. She said she was out and about. I said, perfect. Would you like me to text you a link of all of the open houses today and tomorrow in the surrounding area? I mean, not many people are going to say no. And if they do, no worries. But absolutely sent her it, followed up, did it the next Friday for the following weekend, gave her all of the open houses in a similar price point and area. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, I had a buyer consult at the office with her and her husband, and now they're an active buyer. So yeah, I feel like having value on you and being knowledgeable of the local area, even the local agents, what's just sold, it's slowly but surely, it's what people tell you when you get in the business, and it's true. Like, but it just takes time to realize it in reality that is what you need. And everyone can see what's on Zillow and Redfin, but nobody knows about the one down the road coming in 2 weeks' time that you heard about at your office meeting, you know? So I feel having the value on you, both to text or email out and in your brain to share is great.
What I like to do is I print out on one page, no pictures, just kind of like data, but I'll have all of the private exclusives, all the coming soons, all the actives, and then all the pending and recently sold. And then what I'll do is we're on top of the market. So anything that's sold, how many offers did they get? And just write a quick number, like 11 offers, 2 offers, 1 offer, and kind of run through and just put notes. And I usually use a blue pen so that stands out. And then I'll write some notes on the pending ones about like when it's going to close or if it was cash, something. And then at the top, there's the coming soons, or the off-market private exclusives. And then in red pen at the top, I'll write Sean's copy, do not remove. And I'll leave that on the table. And then when I'm having that conversation with somebody, I'll just say, if you'd like, I can send this to you. What's the best phone number? And everybody wants that list. That's an amazing list of information that, to your point, you cannot get that off of Zillow, Redfin, or anybody else. You have to talk to a human who's an expert in the market. And people will be willing at that point to give you their information.
That's all it is. I mean, a lot of it is not secret. It's about being knowledgeable and doing it consistently and presenting well and understanding. And, you know, almost on the sales side now, there's kind of 4 options, in my opinion. When I go on a listing, I'm almost seeing myself as the first buyer. So if it's a you know, it needs a remodel or it's not in a great condition, can I buy it or can one of my investors buy it? And how do we make more money than just a commission? Now, for some sellers, that will work because they want the all cash offer. They could do, you know, that's great. But for a lot of sellers, you're better off going to the market because you'll potentially get more money. Not always, but potentially that's the thought process. So is there a number private exclusive or off market that would work for you, that if we could find a buyer that will give you the flexibility you need, that works? Okay, if not, no, you want to maximize the profit yourself. Cool. You want to use Compass Concierge, where maybe we can do some cosmetic stuff to put 40 grand in. Maybe we can list for 200 grand more and get more showings. Or do you want to partner on a remodel? Like, you know, the values here, you don't have the capital or the money to spend 250 grand. You don't want to sell at an investor price, but you're interested in that scenario, then yeah, let's talk about partnership. So I feel like that's where I developed, where you're not going in to list the house, you're going in with 4 options that you can do, and one of them will work, and then you just work the time frame in reverse from that. And I feel it helps you are more honest by doing that, but it also helps you come up with 4 solutions for them, rather than just, oh, I think we can list it at $1 million and our days on the market are about 14 in this neighborhood and we could probably do some paint. Like, great. What about giving them an offer to partner, and then the 2 middle ground where if we can get you a number, or if we can update ourselves and get a bit more money. That's kind of where I've found to be quite good, you know?
It's clever. That's a very clever approach, and it's smart, because at the end of the day, you're putting the seller in control, and they have all the options laid out in front of them. And so whatever is going to align best with their outcome, they can make a really well-educated decision at that point.
No, I agree. Like I say, it's just about having the options, presenting the value, and performing on what you say you're going to do. And if you've got bad news to give, that's not a bad thing. You just got to be honest and give that. So, you know, everyone wants to celebrate the successes in real estate and get multiple offers and sell it in 2 days. But ultimately, if you get feedback that your listing is not in a good condition, they don't like this, then you have to give that to the seller and react accordingly. So I think we're right on the same page there. And that's what's great by sharing things with agents as well, is that you pick up what you're doing in your market, you pick up what I'm doing in my market, and then from there, everything's in front of you. You know, you've got the knowledge.
For me, the hard thing to remember and remind myself is we don't make the market as agents, and we don't make up information. We just simply convey it. And so I'm just conveying a piece of information to the seller or to the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, the buyer or seller is then making a well-informed they're making a well-informed decision based on the information at hand. And so it's easy for us agents to get emotionally wrapped up in it, but we're just communicating information. That's all we're doing. And it's hard to not always get wrapped up into the stress and anxiety, because we do want everything to end up perfect for our clients. That's not always going to be the scenario.
No, and I feel like agents get so defensive on the, why didn't you use me? What do you mean? I mean, let's cut to the thing. Most buyers or most members of the public can find out 98% of the information that they need about a property from the tax record, Zillow, you know, you can find it out. So it's not a secret. You can see what it was sold for. You can see when it was listed. You can find out everything you need. The most important things for our job is, yes, you can find that out, but how do you get that from contract to close? How do you build the relationship? How do you make sure that you're fully protected, that you're inspecting well, that you're protected if you need to terminate? You can't find that out. And then just to keep reiterating, because this is so important, it's what agents do you know around this local area as well, and what properties can you tell your clients about before they hit the market? Because then they'll realize that they need to work with you rather than wait to see something pop up. You know, I'll take Carmel Valley, for example, where I'm right in the Del Mar Carmel Valley office here at Compass. The low inventory's crazy, that when, even in this market, when a home in a good school district here gets listed, there might be 5 or 6 offers on that straight away. But again, going back, if you can know about that 2 weeks and your buyers are willing to pay what they feel is a fair market price and the sellers are happy, perfect. So yeah, I just feel like it's so important, and I'm really learning on a daily basis. People want what they don't know. So if you know more than them on they can know more than you about everything. They can know what it sold for. They can know everything because they looked at the tax record. That's perfect. But they don't know about the neighbor that you met last week that is considering selling, but they're not sure yet. And that, could you make that happen? So the creativity is also key.
Being creative at any juncture is incredibly important. And that's, to me, that goes back to agency, of having those little pieces of those nuggets of information, the little pieces of intel that a buyer or seller can act on before everybody else knows about. That's what keeps us in the high valued position. Because if it's just Googleable, it diminishes our individual values and those abilities. Oftentimes, I don't think buyers and sellers actually realize how crucially important it is for their agent to just have a really good relationship and network within that market. Because to your point, hearing about a property hours earlier than everybody else can be a game changer for that client.
100%.
There's so many opportunities I've had because I found out about things a little bit earlier than everybody else, or I've gotten the call back because the other top offer, they would rather work with somebody who they knew would get the job done.
A lot of people try and overcomplicate being an agent, and they, like I said, they get, when they let people know more than you. Let your buyers tell you everything, because you'll probably learn something. You'll learn their true feelings, why they really think that it's overpriced, or why they may not want to move to it. And then you can come up with solutions. Where I feel like if you're constantly telling people, they'll think you're trying to push them. Really, all I'm trying to do is get the deal done. Once we know we're good, let me figure out with the agent what's important for the seller. Like you say, 99% of the time it'll be price, but a lot of the time it's not about price. It's about, oh, well, they're not sure where they're going to move. They might want to lease back for 3 months. Perfect. We can make that happen. Or they're not sure about, find out what's important. Obviously it is going to be price 99% of the time, but a lot of the time you can make yourself stand up. And that's the beauty of learning how to do transactions and deal with emotions and take your emotions out, understand the client's emotions. Why are they feeling that way? Why do they think it's only worth that? Or what is their hesitancy after inspection? And be the professional and you're just providing solutions for people. That's kind of it. And then you get their repeat referrals, not from agents, but from clients. Then when they look to sell in 2 years, they're going to call you, and then you're going to get a sell and a buy. Or when their family or friends at work looks to sell, that's really what you're after from a client, is you want to be their go-to and you want them to sing your praises. And that really just comes from learning how to get a deal done and doing it professionally and ethically along the way.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's, yeah, also very true. I had a manager early on say that most agents get into trouble when they assume. And that's your point, is when you're talking to a seller or a buyer and emotions are starting to elevate, don't assume you actually know what. Just ask. Keep asking. Ask different questions. Ask more creative questions. And I know for me, when I approach it from just being really curious, I tend to learn a lot more about that situation, and then I can find and figure out a much more surgical approach to solve that problem, rather than it's not always just about the money or the closing time. There's usually some bigger stress or anxiety that's wrapped up behind it. And sometimes it's the moving logistics, or it's the timing of a couple things happening, or who knows, but you just have to ask. And it's hard to remember, but it's incredibly important to do.
I think when I look at my career in San Diego here, the two best things to happen for my business, I mentioned one earlier, was the interest rates going up. That sounds mental, because everyone would have done more deals if the interest rates had stayed at 3% and we'd have more money in our bank account. But again, that was the reason that made me realize I lived here now. So I had to grow that local network. The other best thing that happened to me was quite early on. I had a buyer in escrow for just over 2.5 million. Great location in Del Mar. It would have been perfect for me to work off of and build that. And they changed their mind. The inspection was good. They just decided, it was as the rates started to go, what their payment was going to be in December when they were looking, compared to now the sort of March, April, May, it started going from 3 to 4 to 5 a couple of years ago. that termination from doing everything right made my stomach churn, because when you talk about the commission and things like that, that's a nice commission on there and that would have been great. But it just made me realize that you have to take your emotion out of it, do what's best by the client at all times. And 3 months later, those same clients bought a house for more money, which ended up being more money. And now I sold another house of theirs in Scripps Ranch here. So by doing the right thing on the first time, although it made me feel physically sick, that was the best experience to go through, because at that price point, starting in my new business here, it was just an eye-opener. If you do the right thing, it will come back better and bigger. So the interest rate's going up and a $2.5 million termination, I try and look at a positive route in my experience here, and it's been good, you know.
I have to say, Lloyd, your mindset in the way that you perceive the world it's refreshing, and I hope that was conveyed and people heard that as they listen to this conversation. I really appreciate the way you approach your business and do business. Unfortunately, we're at time.
There you go.
This was a really super fun chat. So thank you again for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, Sean. And look forward to the next time.